Okay, 1 second. Alright, here's our console. Okay, so before we continue, I quickly want to mention that you should first be using Google Chrome, and because it comes with really good dev tools, and then the two dev tools that you can install as extensions would be the Redux Dev Tools, and this will allow us to look at our component tree. So app is our component, and inside is this HTML that lives in here, as well as the Redux Dev Tools, which we're going to use to, uh, oh right, we're going to use the Redux Dev Tools to actually see our global state. But first we actually need to be able to use it. So back in here, let's, what do we need? Oh, right. We need to apply middleware and also compose. Um, these two functions relate to adding middleware to our store, which is a third parameter. Um, that is, it's optional, but it's necessary when you add in Redux middleware. So compose will turn all the middleware into one object, so that it can be used as one parameter. And then we're going to do apply middleware of thunk, as well as the Redux Dev Tools, which is first it's going to check if the window dot Redux Dev Tools extension underscore. So it'll first check if it exists, and then if it does exist, it's gonna call it. So Redux Dev Tools extension. And that is the basics of our Redux store. So let's just I'm gonna quickly clear and then create a containers folder. So source containers, and then we're gonna move app there. So app, source components app.jsx, and we're gonna move it to source containers slash app.jsx, and that will move it there. It's gonna throw an error because we're importing app from the wrong place in our entry file. So let's fix that. Containers, save. Everything's working perfectly like it does. And let's actually add in our store. First, I'm gonna get rid of this, as our app component doesn't need to be a smart component. Also, the shorthand for smart and dumb is basically this is a functional component, so it's stateless. It has no state. And then if you use the class app extends component, it has access to React state, which we don't need right now. So what do we need in here? Let's see. We're gonna need to connect our store, so that comes from React Redux, and I believe that's all we need. All right, so in there we need the provider, and we're gonna nest the app with the provider. So where did it go? Provider, and I shouldn't have deleted that, to be honest. Div app works. Huh, I thought it would actually throw an error. So, the provider takes in a prop called store, and we're going to pass in our store, which we will import store from dot dot slash store. So, well, it's index, so we don't have to add the index after that. So I believe that's it. Let's check. This is export const, so it's not a default export, which means we have to destructure it from the store. And with all of that, export a reducer to be function. Feel like I'm missing something. Create store, import, create store, root reducer, default state, apply middleware. I don't know if that actually changes anything. Oh yeah, it does. So yeah, I forgot to call the function. I see that it exists, but I didn't actually do anything with it. Now our app works, and we have access to the Redux Dev Tools. And also, if we go into the, oops, wrong one. All right, 1 second. The React Dev Tools, we'll see that our app is here. We also have the Redux provider here. And that comes with a couple things. So it comes with a lot of stuff that we don't actually need to know all about. We just need to know this store here. So validate, true, stuff, props, children, app works. So I think I'm actually not gonna go over all of this because it's a little daunting. But basically, the provider means that our store is connected. And if we go into our Redux DevTools, we can see that it's connected. But you'll see that none of the global states are here. Well, errors here because we added the default state here. So yeah. So everything's connected and good. Let's actually add more actions. So let's close some of these files. There's a lot up here. Okay. So action types. So we need authentication. So that's gonna be the next thing that we're gonna do. 1 second. Alright. So let's create those files. Clear. We're gonna touch. I'm in client, so I need to go to source. Store. Actions. And we're gonna add in a auth.js as well as a source store reducers auth.js, and then make sure that we export in both places. Export star from /auth. This is the actions index, and then in our our reducers index, we're gonna put it up here. Import auth from /auth, and this is gonna throw an error because auth is not defined yet. We haven't done anything with it. Oh, I thought it would. I guess not. All right. So let's add in the actions auth and the reducers auth. So in actions, we need to set what it's going to do. So we're going to import some errors to actually use the errors that we use. So add error and remove error. And we're also going to import the action type set, from / action types. And that is tab completed. And then finally, we need to import the API from / services / API. Okay. Yeah, quickly to go over this path, .. will get us up one level to store, .. again will get us to source, and then we go down into services and into API. Okay, now the imports are out of the way. Let's actually create our actions. So export const set current user. It's going to take in the user as an object, and it's going to return the action type with type set current user and then user. And then export const set token equals token, and we're just gonna set the API token. Oops. Set token to token. Okay, so this is our action. It's gonna take in the user as data, and it's gonna populate user in our reducer. But if you remember, getting the user is asynchronous, and we actually need to call the API. So to do that, we need to make a thunk, which is basically, okay, this is going to be a little hard to explain. It's basically a function that returns a function. So const auth user, it's going to take in the path and the data, and it's going to return a function where it takes in the dispatch. And async, so we need to put in a try catch. Error, and if there's an error, we're gonna destructure the error from error.response.data, and we're gonna dispatch add error. So dispatch comes from Redux thunk, and it calls our action add error, which we created in the error file. And then finally it takes in the parameter error. So it's calling this function here. And dispatch just sends it to Redux for it to do, basically. So in here, we need to, we needed to destructure the token and the rest of the user from awaits api.call. It's going to be a post request to /auth path. This has to be backticks, and we're going to send in the data. And so after that happens, we'll dispatch set current user with the user, and we're also going to dispatch remove error. In case there is an error, we get rid of it. Let's see. There is one problem. We need to actually get the token from somewhere, or set it somewhere. So we're going to set it into local storage. Set item, and the token is going to be called JWT token, and then API.set token. Now this is little API. Okay, so this calls this function here, which adds thing, sets the token. Local storage is the browser. This will allow us to have the user stay logged in even if he closes the window. And oh, we also need to be able to log out. Export const logouts, which will return a dispatch function, and we're going to clear the local storage. Clear. We're also going to do API.set token to null to get rid of the token that's saved in Axios, and then dispatch set current user to an empty object, and also we're going to remove errors. Okay, that is quite a lot, but I did not do the reducers yet. Okay, let's do this. So these are all the functions that are needed to do authentication, and the reducers is surprisingly much simpler because of thunk, because of the lack of thunk needed in here. So once again, we need to /action types. We get set current user as our action type, and then so default state is gonna be so we're gonna hold the user is empty. It's gonna be empty when as default, so no one's logged in, and we're also gonna add in is authenticated to false. So this basically means there's no user. We're adding this extra fields just so it makes things a little easier for us in the long run. And then finally, we're going to export defaults, a reducer function. So which takes in the states, and by default, it's going to be the default state, and it also takes in the action. And then we add in a switch statement with a couple cases, or just one case, and then a default where we return state. And in switch, we're checking the action type, and the case is going to be set current user, and we're going to return is authenticated, and user action dot user. So is authenticated, we're actually going to need it to be a boolean, and it's going to be of the form of okay, bear with me, this is a little confusing. Object dot keys action user dot blank. Okay, so one exclamation mark negates it and returns a boolean. 2 double negation returns the true value of true, basically. And then object.keys action.user, we're going to check this user property, and we're going to check the link. So if there is a current user in here, we're going to see if they exist. If it's 0, then it's going to return false. and if it's 1 with the user, it's going to return true. Yep. And then in our reducer index, auth is there. And in this index, auth is also there. Okay, so quite a lot of things, but we got through the Redux store, and we are this is fine. This is fine for now. Actually, I'll just add it in for clarity. So the default state of the entire application, we're gonna have user. Nah, I'm too lazy. Okay, let's see. Oh right. So we actually want to check if the user is already authenticated before the application opens. So for that, we're gonna check local storage. The JWT token is what we called it. So if the token exists, we're gonna set the user in here. So set token. It's gonna be JWT token, I believe, or local storage. Local storage dot JWT token, and then we're gonna just do a try catch. Error store dot dispatch sets current user and store dot dispatch add error. We actually need to import these two files, so that will come from here, from /store/actions, and actions has a index that returns everything, so we just get set current user and add error. And then in here, we're gonna do store.dispatch set current user, and then the local storage dot JWT token, and we actually want to decode. Set token also comes from here. Set token, and we actually want to decode the token. So we're gonna do we're gonna install something called JWT decode, which can read a JSON web token and decode it, so we have the user that's encrypted inside of the token. So at the very top, we're just going to import decode from JWT decode, and we're gonna just wrap this in here. So with everything done correctly, we're gonna go in here, and it looks like I already have a user logged in. This user, however, doesn't exist in our database. It came from when I was working on this app beforehand. Okay, so that allows us to have users come in or stay logged in even if they close the browser. And okay, so Redux is set up, and we can start creating our application.